To give a quick tutorial on how to produce the image for people who have a hard time understanding how this book is organized. So I'm going to make links to the images that you're going to need on the blog. Just also showing you that you can, from your folder on your desktop, you can also drag an image directly into Photoshop to open it up. So we're going to start with the image called dali.tiff, and I'm going to drag it right into the Photoshop window, which is already open, and now we have that image. For a start, I need you to, the exercise asks you to crop the image of Dali down to pretty much just surrounding his head, so it's just his portrait, his head there. So I surrounded it. I used the crop tool here, just to remind you, double clicking on it to confirm the change. And now open up a new document. New. This one will be the Dali Moon collage. I'm just making a name for it. And the width should be 5.5 inches. The height will be 7. The resolution is 300. And we want color mode, RGB color, and transparent background contents. Say OK. And now you have the two tabs up here, the Dali TIFF image and the Dali Moon collage. Go to the Dali.tiff image, please, and look at the image size. And notice that the resolution here is 400. We're going to change that to 300, and we're going to uncheck resample. That way we make sure that it just gets a little bit smaller, and that's just what we want. We can safely do this without having to produce new pixels. Okay, and the next thing I want you to do is to copy the entire Dali image with the command keys, or you can use the edit menu if you want to, starting off by going Command A or select all, and then Command C, which is up in the edit menu up here, and then navigate to the new blank image, the blank page, and go Command V for paste. And he's still pretty big. The first thing that we're going to do is trace around this image with the pen tool. This is one way to make a selection. It's a pretty elaborate way to make a selection because it requires a lot of attention to detail. It's just one way to do this, and there's other ways. And so I'm going down here to the pen tool just to show you that there is this option to work this way, for especially if you have some art that has a lot of detail and you want to be really careful with it. Okay, the pen tool is one way to make a selection and extract an image from its background. The pen tool is really similar, really identical to the pen tool in Illustrator, but it's used in a slightly different way. But the work of drawing with it is really different, is really similar. I mean, you need to be able to patiently look ahead and look where the points are, where you want to make changes in your image, and use those as corner points, because you're going to have a bunch of little tiny anchor points. And what we're doing is making a path. So you can see as I go around a corner, I kind of pull with the pen and let the Bezier handles get pulled out. Then I go to the next corner and do that again. So I'm just going to go down his forehead. It's almost done. This is just one way to do it, and I'll show some other ways too. Let's see. And the more changes there are in the image, say around his lips, the more points you need to make. This will be easier for people who draw. It's a little harder for people who don't draw, or if you don't have a mouse. So now everything is selected. All of these items are selected. we've circled all, or we've made the circumference around his entire head. And at this point, you could take the direct selection tool, which is just exactly the same as with Illustrator, and use that to make any changes to the points using a similar technique, getting close to the point, activating it, and then moving it around. So I'm sneaking this down into his ear a little more, pushing it out around his head a little bit more, using this Bezier curve to his handle. I'm also using the arrow tools. Over here by his eyeballs, you can't really see it that well anyway. So we'll look at some other tools to smooth out something that maybe has some inaccuracies in how it's selected. And doing something like this is all about trying to make some kind of photorealism. So when people are doing photo tampering and making images that where somebody looks 25 pounds skinnier than they actually are working with, they might be working with this level of detail. And then what we're going to do next with this image is we're actually going to convert it to this. What we've made is a path, or what's also called a working path here. And what we're going to do is convert it to a selection. So on the menu called Paths, which you could also find up here in the window menu, hit this little button, this little arrow, this little circle of dotted lines, and now you can see we have a selection. And with that selection, we can do a lot of things. One thing we can do is we could just go delete, and of course now we've deleted his whole head, which is not what we want to do for two reasons. First of all, we really want to delete the background. We'll select, inverse, and now we could delete. And now we've deleted the background, which is kind of what we want to do. But so this is what people learn how to do, and people who aren't professionals in Photoshop learn how to just get rid of all the pixels that you don't want. But to work professionally, and I'm going to undo this now, means that you actually keep all of those pixels intact, and you don't delete them if you can avoid it. Instead, you mask them over. So what we're going to do instead, what masking means to cover over the things that we don't want to see. And so we're going to open up we don't even need to open up the layers menu now. We can do is work out of this channels menu, or, which would be preferable, is to open up the layers menu. We don't need color. Get rid of color. We don't need this. Let's look at the layers menu and see at the bottom here is this little icon called Add Layer Mask. Same problem again. We need to invert the image, and now once again I'll hit it, Add Layer Mask, and now we've gotten rid of the background. So we still have some imperfections in this. But I want to show a few things, and we'll make some changes in that, and fix it up a little more. And one thing I want to show you here are, now there's two little images up in the layer. One of them is the image itself, and if I was to take a paintbrush here with black and paint on that image, I would actually be painting over it in black. I don't want to do that. But we also have what's called the layer mask, or the layer mask thumbnail. And what we can do is still go back and fix up our mistakes or clean it up a little bit more by using the paintbrush in black very carefully around the edge. So that's one way, and it's really easy to make mistakes, so do tiny little lines. So that's one way to get a more perfect selection, or extraction as we call it, when we take one image out of another.